Vladimir, can you please mute yourselves and close your camera? Tajikistan, please close your camera and mute yourself. For some reason, we cannot control it here. Okay, dear participants, now we're starting session 6, which will discuss SDGs 15 and SDGs 14 for North and Central Asia. And without much ado, because we do want to have some time for discussions, I will now hand over to our moderator, Ms. Barbara from the German Kazakh University. Barbara, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Natalia. I'm very privileged to be today with you, with this great reason to be here to discuss at the session 6, as it was mentioned, the Healthy Planet and Accelerated Action on Sustainable Development Goals 14. Life beyond life below water, and 15 life on land. I think that's extremely important issue here for our region, and as you could see also probably in our concept note, that our countries are not really on track on achieving maybe on those goals, and somehow also even below, especially when you look at the indicators for the goal 14 on the chlorophyll and on the protected marine areas and sustainable fisheries. We see that there is much to be done, and also on the 6 targets of the Sustainable Development Goal 15, we are beyond. So this session is a very important for us platform to discuss the challenges. Why is it happening like that with land degradation, deforestation, droughts, and water scarcity, and how can we go above, beyond that? We see that the costs of this that we are not doing anything are far beyond the cost if we would become more active. So the question is, why is it really so, and why the efforts? What are the gaps maybe? What is the struggle? Where are the problems? And this session can also give us the great opportunity to exchange and look at the priorities which stay for us for the couple of years in front of us until 2030 to achieve the agenda for sustainable development in Central Asia. And we first of all also want to discuss our good practices from the region, what's going on, and learn from each other. All the outcomes of our discussions will be presented 2022 at the session of the Asia-Pacific Forum for Sustainable Development, which is also a great forum for that to make our region of North and Central Asia multi-stakeholder forum to give it more visibility and maybe more perspectives to exchange and discuss. And I also welcome very much the co-organizers next to ESCAP, that's also FAO and UNEP. I feel we are very privileged to have the partners, and first of all also the speakers. But before I introduce the speakers right away, I would just like to make a very technical note that we will listen to a couple of presentations today according to the program, and we hope, as Natalia mentioned, to have a panel discussion. There will be a session of questions and answers, but really please feel free to ask your questions in the chat. And I would be happy if these questions will be directly requested to, directed to some of our panelists, that they just pick it up and in the chat version to answer in the meantime. Later on, when we have time, we will have an open microphone and then we can ask the questions. And for now, I would like to start with our first speaker. And our first speaker is Dr. Katinka Weinberger. She is with us, joining from ESCAP, UN ESCAP, and she's a Chief of Environment and Development Policy section. And that's great privilege because Katinka has a long experience in achieving and mainstreaming the SDG agenda within ESCAP, but she used to also work with other UN agencies and also in the research. So her policy advice is very much science-based. And I think this is something what we very much need these days in the region. Katinka, floor is yours and the 10 minutes are yours.
Thank you very much, Barbara, for this very kind introduction. Just checking that the tone is okay. Can be heard? Great. So yes, I wanted to say a couple of words today on the state of environmental health, not only focusing on the sub-region, but also giving a broader perspective. And if I could please have the next slide. So I think, we're all very much aware that Earth only has a very finite capacity to sustain human well-being, but that at the same time, the current way of us developing, the current way of us organizing economic growth really degrades that capacity. And yet at the same time, we as humans, we depend on these limited resources that our planet provides us with. So just as we're degrading the capacity of Earth to provide these resources, we also degrade the capacity of Earth to ensure our own human well-being. And to put things into perspective, since the 1970s, the global economy has grown 5-fold, trade has grown 10-fold, population and average prosperity 2-fold, but at the expense of extracting 3 times the natural resources. And still 1.3 billion people remain poor and 700 million people go hungry. So something is not quite right here, right? Global assessments, such as the IPBES Global Assessment Report on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, indicate that 3/4 of land and 2/3 of the ocean are adversely impacted by humans. 1 million of the world's 8 million species of plants and animals are threatened by extinction. And then to further this message, we are not on course also to fulfill the Paris Agreement. In fact, a report that has been produced for the forthcoming COP indicates that globally, all pledges taken together, greenhouse gas emissions are likely to grow by 16% by 2030, rather than to fall by the needed 45% in this comparison of 2010 to 2030. And a study that we at ESCAP have been involved in shows that the Asia Pacific region falls even more behind. Greenhouse gases are projected to increase by nearly 1/3 by 2030 as compared to 2010. So I think the bottom line here that I want to present to you is that society is failing to meet most of its commitments that are outlined in the 2030 agenda to limit environmental damage. Next slide, please. And to this, Barbara, you had already alluded to it in your opening remarks, North and Central Asia is no exception, right? We see progress is lacking on most of the environment-related goals across all subregions of Asia and the Pacific, but this graph, which provides data for North and Central Asia, shows that the sub-region really needs to reverse a negative trend on SDG 14. That's where you see the red bar, the big red bar. And although this section is not specifically focusing on SDG 13, also on SDG 13, and while there has been some progress on SDG 15, this is not as far as we would have liked it to be. And really the length of each bar shows the progress of the sub-region since 2000. And if a bar reaches or even crosses the 2020 line, then we could expect the sub-region has made the expected progress to date. And then if we move on to the next slide, and again, Barbara had already spoken to this. This was presented in the concept note. The in-depth look at each of the individual indicators shows, I think, two main messages. The upper graph presents the information for SDG 14. And what it really shows us is that there is a severe lack of data for the sub-region. We only have data on 14.11. And what it also shows us is that the goal 15, which has better data available, has made some progress on sustainable forest management. And that is actually a good message, considering the importance of the sub-region overall in terms of forest coverage. Yeah. But then again, if we move to the right side, the dashboard of the expected achievement. Yeah. So whereas the left side shows whether we expect the goal to be achieved, the right side gives us indication on the speed of progress. I am not presenting you any information on SDG 14 here, simply because we lack the data. We don't have the data. For SDG 15, you see that for most of the targets, we also lack data. We have data only for 1, 2, 4, and 5 of the targets. So the overall message here is, while the information that we have indicates that not enough progress is being made, we also have insufficient data available based on the SDG progress indicators to have a decisive statement in respect to where each of the individual indicators are headed. And if I could please have the next slide. So again, the session focuses on SDG 14 and 15, and rightly so, because this is also the focus of next year's high-level political forum. But I would really like to emphasize that the achievement of all SDGs is threatened through the challenges in respect to climate, land degradation, biodiversity loss, and pollution that we see happening in the region and in the sub-region. And the cost of these environmental risks really run high. For example, the damages of climate-related natural disasters costed us 155 billion in 2018 alone. Land degradation negatively affects more than 3 billion people worldwide. And the loss of pollinators threaten annual global crop outputs worth in the amount of 235 to perhaps even 577 billion US dollars. And on top of that, while the burden of this environmental decline is felt by all, the poor and the most vulnerable are really disproportionately impacted. So the message here is we really need to accelerate our action, whether it is on climate-related aspects or on biodiversity, land degradation-related aspects. And if I could have the next slide. And again, zooming in on the link between biodiversity, health, and climate change. Ideally, this nexus is characterized by linkages between intact natural ecosystems, human health, and climate change. But we're looking at this relationship especially in the context of COVID-19, because we're aware that functioning ecosystems provide a variety of ecosystem services. Health benefits such as disease regulation and pest control are examples of such ecosystem services. And in areas where natural ecosystems are converted, say, to produce large amounts of livestock and of crops, such ecosystems are broken down. And we see this in then containing the ecosystems containing significantly less species, and we also see a collapse of certain ecosystem services. I had mentioned the pollination before. At the same time, we have the impact of climate change, which further drives some of these changes, affecting the natural habitats and also affecting people directly through temperatures. And such modified environments create a high risk of zoonosis, as we see wildlife coming in closer contact with domestic animals and also humans. And I think that there is a raised awareness across all levels of governments that with the pandemic affecting us so strongly over the past 2 years, there is a much stronger need to look at these relationships. And next slide, please. So as you all move into your session today, the message that I would like to leave you with is that to transform the relationship that we as humans have with nature is really key to a sustainable future. And I'm very sure that this can happen. We have sufficient knowledge, we have the ingenuity, we have the technology also. And I think we also have the cooperation, including at sub-regional level, to transform societies and to make sure that we all have a sustainable future. But we really require system-wide transformation to achieve this well-being for all. We need to really look at the interconnected nature of environmental issues and require develop holistic responses that address all of these issues together. And they relate to net zero CO2 emissions by 2050, to biodiversity conservation and restoration, as well as to the reduction and management of chemicals and waste pollution. At the same time, it is important that we look at the economic and the financial systems and transform them in a way that there is a power shift towards sustainability. And this includes moving away from environmentally harmful subsidies and investing in low carbon and sustainable solutions and technologies, including to internalize environmental and social costs. And of course, this also relates to the way that all of us consume. Changing consumption practices, obviously also critical. So my final point really is that while you will be discussing progress on SDG 14 and 15 in this session, I would really like to encourage you to keep these interlinkages to other goals, as well as to the means of implementation, particularly the finance element, firmly in sight. And with this, thank you very much, and back over to you, Barbara. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katinka. I think that was very informative. And on one side, of course, you remind us that it's not only North and Central Asia who is behind the agenda, but it's not a very big comfort to all of us, because as you say, we are generally failing worldwide, and now we need a systematic change and the interconnection. But you said it's possible, that we have the capacity. So I really think that this positive message should also be said, that we can, strengthen the efforts. Thank you so much for your contribution. And I am delighted to invite our next speaker, who is Mr. Sanjay Srivastava. He's Chief of Disaster Risk Reduction at ESCAP. He is also one of the lead authors of ESCAP, a flagship publication, Asian Pacific Disaster Report, a long-term expert in disaster-related issues, and And I think that, again, taking into account your scientific background and at the same time your understanding of the regional cooperation, I think your presentation is going to be very valuable for our discussion. Thank you very much. Floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. Thank you, my colleagues and Natalia and all the team. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm very happy that I'm speaking just after my colleague Katinka, because many of the outstanding issues which she has flagged off, I think we have some analysis done at sub-regional level, including North and East Asia, North and Central Asia, in relation to goal 14 and 15, why the sub-region is lagging behind, what are the challenges. So my first slide shows, which is what Katinka spoke, what was there in the concept note, but what I would like to highlight is we have to look at these three goals, that is climate action, life below water, and life on land in conjunction, in together, all are interrelated. You cannot.
Sanjay, so sorry,
Yeah.
can I interrupt for 1 second? It seems that we see your screen with your directory of your computer on the shared screen, not the PowerPoint. Are you currently sharing the PowerPoint? Because if it doesn't work, then maybe Valentin can do it for you.
Yeah, I think that will be great. There was some problem. I don't know what has gone wrong.
Sure, no worries.
I will request Valentin.
Yes, Valentin, give us 30 seconds to set it up, Sanjay. Thank you.
Right, thank you. So the point which I was trying to highlight is we have to look at this 14 and 15 in conjunction, and more importantly, in conjunction with the goal 13, that is the climate action. So my next slide, Valentin, is, yes, this is, you see in climate action, there are some set of data sets which shows the progress in a negative direction, and these are all interrelated. So my next slide, I would like to bring to your attention why this interrelation is so close, especially the SDG 14 and 13 and 15, so closely interlinked in North and Central Asia. These slides, many of you are aware, this is all available in the public domain. This is taken from the NASA, the repository of the satellite images, and you look at the RLC, how the sea and the chlorophyll content for which you have some data available, how it's on decline. This shrinking RLC exemplifies the state of progress of 14. And this shrinking, unless it is arrested, it will be very difficult, particularly to address some of the goals, and more so in SDG 14. And when we were doing this analysis, we will be publishing in coming days some of the analytics in North and Central Asia. We looked at the water bodies in whole of North and Central Asia, and it was surprised to see the decline of not only RLC, many of the water bodies which used to be prominently seen on the multi-date satellite images in 2000, 2004, and so on, were all on decline. So that shows very clearly about the decline in the overall chlorophyll content, which is related to goal 14. My next slide is to show you what is the key driver, what we should do in terms of the policy interventions, which can bring some transformative impact in terms of achieving SDG 14 and 15. So one which we did all analysis, what could be the key driver? One key driver that we saw from our analytics was look at the risk escape on North and Central Asia and quantify the risk escape in terms of the money. We call in economics, in disaster risk reduction language, annualized average loss. Means this is a probabilistic estimations, because getting data for economic impact of disaster is a Herculean task. There are many challenges. So what was used here, it was probabilistic risk assessment. First time it was published in Global Assessment Report, and it was used for Sendai framework negotiation in 2015. And you look at the risk escape of North and Central Asia, the region is losing $30 billion per annum. And out of $30 billion, $75 billion percent of it comes from drought alone. So drought is a key driver for both SDG 14 as well as SDG 15. So drought covers 75% of North and Central Asia disaster risk escape. And then drought triggers desertification and land degradation. I will come back to you a little later. And then climate change exacerbate the cycle of drought, desertification, and land degradation. When you see my left side of the slide, this is a closed loop. And that closed loop is climate change, drought, land degradation, and desertification. So if I come to my next slide is just to show, we have used this FAO aridity map because it was based on a very high reliable data sets. What is really alarming is you see in the first half, the top, 1961 to 1990, you see your aridity. Aridity is just precipitation by evapotranspiration. That aridity was not much, especially in the upper regions of North and Central Asia. But when you see from 1970 to 2000, we are yet to procure the recent data set, you see the expansion of aridity. And that is quite alarming. This kind of aridity you see at a country level. There are many countries who were not under the arid and semi-arid region category are now falling back into the arid and semi-arid region category. So my next slide is going to show you the climate scenario. The most recent IPCC assessment report 6, they have used a model that is called CMIP, that is coupled model intercomparison phase 6. That's one of the best scientific assessment available as of today on what could be the potential climate impact. And if you look at from the potential climate impact, we use this model, and then World Bank in 2019, they came out with a first time the gridded climate scenario projection. We used to have a tabular data, but first time what was available is in a gridded form, the climate risk scenario data. So when you use the CMIP6 and with the gridded climate scenario data, you are in a position to pinpoint which are those hotspots emerging in North and Central Asia. It's a hotspot of convergence of drought, desertification, and land degradation. So this is the hotspot which is going to create, if not managed efficiently and scientifically, it will widen the gap between what is targeted for SDG 14, 15, and 13 and what is achieved. So this is something which needs to be taken at a sub-regional level very carefully. My next slide shows is the people, the community, the people upfront. When you see the impact of this climate change, it's not only land, but also look at the people. The important part which I would like to bring to your attention, we have used the same model data, and we have used what we call world pop data, which is a UN DESA developed population grid in a gridded format. It's a vector and raster data together. So when you use this latest the data available from some of the high and scientific sources, and then look at the climate scenario, who are the people likely to be impacted the most in coming days by, we have not taken the extreme climate, that is the representative concentration pathways, 8.5, just 4.5, and that is what it reflects in today's IPCC. The temperature increase is between 1.1 to 1.5 in different parts of the world. So if you take this scenario, which is considered to be moderate scenario, you can see the the population which are going to be impacted in arid and semi-arid regions in different parts of the North and Central Asia. My next slide shows, and it also shows the hotspot. But what I would like you to spotlight this particular analysis is, we made use of UNDP HDI data, because this data is available in some part of the world, not all part of the world, a gridded form, a pixel data sets of HDI, Human Development Index. We use this HDI UNDP gridded data sets, overlaid this on desertification map, the potential desert which are growing in this region substantially. And you just see the low HDI, the people who are poor. I think Katinka was highlighting, they are the ones who are going to be most impacted, even in this part of the world as well. And here we have spotted out those who are having low HDI in terms of education, health, income. HDI has a very composite index, and where those people are located. So those are the people who are located in the region where drought, desertification, land degradation are taking place much more than any other part of the region. So my next slide is going to show you the livelihood. So the people you saw in expanding the SDG 14-15 crisis hotspot to the livelihood, agriculture. This is again FAO data set. We intersected this FAO data set on the expansion of desertification and pinpointed those regions where agriculture, which is having a lifeline in many parts of this sub-region, will have much more stress than what it is today. My next slide shows is the solution. Having said all this, and these analyses are all based on the scientific data sets, very well calibrated, validated, because it's at a regional level. For a national level, you need many customization and validation. So at a regional level, that was the analysis. But now we came to the solution part of it. When you take how much money the region requires to adapt to the changing climate and reverse the trend of climate action, SDG 14 and 15, we have come out that the region GDP $63 billion. Your economic exposure is around, at the worst climate change scenario, is 12.5. At present, it is 10.3 GDP. So it is 2.8% GDP at risk, climate risk presently. In a worst case situation, this 2.8 will become 3.5. But what can be done is, it is possible to minimize this economic impact, and that requires only 0.6% of adaptation cost. That is $2.1 billion you need to adapt to the changing climate, and especially to arrest some of the declining trend. And we have right-hand side, you see the countries concerned, in terms of their GDP, how much is the cost of the adaptation. All details are available in our, I will come back to you. And we have also quantified the adaptation to the health sector, because there are many drought and heat waves which are associated with the health hazards. So we brought down in terms of its impact on the health. So the next slide shows a analysis from a very scientific perspective. This is based on the Global Adaptation Commission report, that what to do if we have to spend the money for adaptation. Those adaptation must be risk informed. You have to understand your risk before spending money for adaptation. When you take, for example, the Asia Pacific left-hand side, the whole Asia Pacific region, you need more money for adaptation to making new infrastructure resilient. When you come to this part, North and Central Asia, the largest benefit lies in making water resources infrastructure resilient. So you see, for example, if I take Kazakhstan, the largest benefit comes for investing in making water resources management more resilient. Then comes to dryland agriculture and new infrastructure resilient, strengthen our rewarding system. So this is where you have to spend money to adapt to such SDG 14, 15, and 13 transformation. My next slide is going to show you what we have done in ESCAP. And I personally request my colleagues who are attending this meeting, there are many who are from the universities and including Dr. Barbara herself. We have brought this risk and resilience portal. It gives you, it provides you the solution to many data gaps. It will provide you the hazard profile, the economic potential impact, the adaptation cost, the areas of adaptation, and the decision support tool, where and how to adapt. My next slide, which is I think the last slide. Next slide is just to show you one example of Armenia. In Armenia, we have used what is called risk-informed index. This is the risk, vulnerability, and also capacity of the government to cope. And we have brought out the Armenia map, which indicates the risk-informed index, which part of Armenia there is a huge gap in terms of capacity as well as risk. So where risk is what we call outspacing resilience. So these are the different partial of the part of the country where you need to, you will see a lot of adaptation gap, and this adaptation gap should be a key policy intervention for the climate resilient infrastructure, particularly climate adaptation. I think that's my last slide. When the next one, yes, that's the last slide. And thank you very much once again for the opportunity. Before I conclude, I just want to let you know that we are going to bring out a report, Asia Pacific Disaster Report, already published. You can just see on the website. Most of these numbers are taken from this report, but we are going to do a deep dive in North and Central Asia with our sub-regional office, with Natalia and the team. And we are very soon bringing out a sub-regional report. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. I think it was very informative, even if at the very beginning you have shown us exactly the RLC, which is an example for not achieving our goals, at least the goal 14th, and then you went to the goal for 15th, and you have shown us the hotspot not only of the droughts, but also hotspot which can be created if we just don't change the pattern of the things, and where the system, I mean the land management will be impacted, and the well-being of all the people. So I think that's very wide spectrum, and also, but at the same time you are giving us the solutions, speaking about the adaptation, especially in the water sector. I mean that's especially to me, I mean that's exactly what we should focus on to try to support the development in the countries. So thank you very much for the valuable presentation and for the solutions, including decision support system, facilitated by ESCAP. Thank you. And before we come to the next speakers, I would like to give the floor back to Natalia to explain to us a little bit about the technical issues of the translation.
Yes, so dear participants, for the next part, where we are linking up with the UNDP country office in Tajikistan to speak about the Central Asian Mammals Initiative, we have a special setup because we have three very special guests who have come from the remote areas in Tajikistan and who will present their project. They are the main heroes of the project, and they will speak in Tajik. And in order for you to still understand and us not to lose too much of the information that they will share, we're trying to set up Tajik channels. So I'm also waiting for my colleague Valentin to confirm. If you please can click on the globe on the interpretation channels, hopefully in a moment you should see that there is a Tajik channel. And the idea is that we have two Tajik channels. One will translate or interpret from Tajik into English for all those of you who would like to listen in English. And the other one will interpret from Tajik into Russian. This is a very big experiment. As you know, we're all in this new frontier of digitalization. And while Zoom is quite okay doing 2 languages, trying to have interpretation across 3 languages, we didn't quite manage to find a better system. So I hope it just works. Valentin, I still only see 1 Tajik channel. Should I just invite all the people who do not speak Tajik to click on that channel and see how we're doing?
Yes, please. If you would just like to hear Russian translation, then you can go to Russian, and then yes, there is only 3 channels for now.
Okay, so those people who want to hear it in Russian, they go to the Russian channel, and those people who want to hear it in English, they go to the Tajik channel. I hope this is clear. Everybody, please play around a bit until you find a language you understand. But I believe that first we will have Vladimir speaking, who will speak in English, and then we will have the 3 ladies who will speak in Tajik. So back to you, Barbara, to introduce the practice.
Thank you very much. Indeed, we have to be very progressive because the world is very diverse and we have to accommodate all of this, the possibilities at once. So I'm extremely pleased to invite now Vladimir Lekarkin, who is working for UNDP in Tajikistan on the project on mammals, on the Mammals Initiative. And he will be, he has made it possible that the great 3 ladies, which I will immediately after introduce, after Vladimir, are today with us. So Vladimir, the floor is yours.
Hello. Hello. Could you allow me please to share the screen?
Should be possible because other participants has already shared. Please try. Please go ahead.
So here's my presentation. I will present in Russian language for our audience, and the translation will be also available for your audience in English language. Итак, добрый день, дорогие участники.
English participants. Oh, no sound. Sorry.
We are experiencing a connection issue.
Извиняюсь, коллеги, сейчас меня слышно? Просто do you hear me well?
Да, слышно. Говорите, Владимир. Vladimir, the sound is very bad. We cannot hear you.
Перед выступлением наших женщин
Vladimir, maybe you switch off the video and we just show the screen, yeah? If you could switch off your video.
Is it now better? Do you hear me now better?
Yes, yes, now we hear you.
Okay, I will proceed. Итак,
Владимир, может, без вашего видео будет лучше слышно?
сейчас хорошо слышно, я уже в нормальном микрофоне. Сейчас вы меня хорошо слышите?
Да.
Да. Окей. Итак, проект сохранения и устойчивого использования экосистем по по миру Алая и Тяньшане для сохранения снежного барса и устойчивой жизнедеятельности общин. Настоящий проект реализуется Национальным центром биоразнообразия.
Project is implemented by the Biodiversity Center with the support of UN and Global Environmental Fund, GF. So this project is very unique. First of all, it just makes contribution to implementation of SDG 15, life on land, because Tajikistan has unique high mountainous systems. And these achievements are through environment protection measures within the restoration areas and at high mountainous landscapes and pastures, and conservation of snow levels.
باید گفته شود که این یک حیوان بسیار زیبا است و این خاص یعنی گوناگونی منطقه ما است در
Asian countries, 12 countries. So it is on the top of the food chain of wildlife, and therefore it's one of the indicators. In other words, sorry, so somebody is speaking at the same time. It shows how we just move successfully to attaining SDG 15. In addition to SDG 15, the project is has impact on SDG 5, gender equality, and empowerment of women in conservation of biodiversity at all levels. The existing gender roles are still having impact on social and economic, environmental limitations faced by women, specifically in rural areas. Therefore, acknowledgement of women as a major owner of resources has an impact, a positive impact on using biodiversity. Therefore, the project promotes gender equality when implementing these measures. It is necessary to state that in addition to traditional duties in like home, household, local women undertake new duties and are quite successful in doing it. So this slide shows bright examples of our activities and which are aimed at promoting gender equality. First of all, this is environment protection activities. So women are trained in monitoring and patrolling snow leopards within the protection areas and outside them. And women manage these protection areas, thus getting benefits through collecting herbs, like a product like honey and well, all the products that can be found in this wildlife. The next one is engaging women in high mountainous pasture and forest management, quite natural ecosystem where snow leopard, which is the habitat for snow leopard and the objects of its gaming. So there and women take part in reconstruction of degrading forests, mitigate the impact of the conflict between wildlife and mankind, and take part in developing energy technologies. Much attention is paid to developing skills for sustainable tourism, teaching women to be tourist guides, you know, just to set cans to find, to track wild animals. Therefore, we just demonstrate our activities. I would like to pass the floor now to our great participants who are at the front of the protection of biodiversity and its development in Tajikistan. We have 4 participants. So the 4th participant is Makhtarbi Abdualim, who just will join us because she came from a remote area and she will be able to talk at this event. Thank you. And now passing the floor to our participants. Thank you very much, Vladimir. Yes, this is quite important for us to hear from the voices from
Биби Мох Рахимовой и Гуламдом Холовой, плюс четвертого нашей уважаемой спикерши. Я просто хочу очень попросить, чтобы сделать это коротко, потому что мы по техническим причинам чуть-чуть уже вышли за повестку, поэтому вам слово в кратких, пожалуйста, сообщениях по возможности, чтобы вас не прорывать. Спасибо. 2-3 минутки по одному, если можно.
We're sharing the screen. Can you see it?
So we share the screen. Can you see that? These are the ladies. Good afternoon. My name is Azimov Mihri. I represent Forestry Department. Since 1993, I am from Jammu Sari Khosor in Baljiwan district and work as a ranger. And I wanted to tell you how I
liked the nature from my childhood. That
ما بسیار حالتهای دچار می‌شدیم که مثلا با حیوانات وحشی اویله خود را گم کردن.
Since we also live in
their families, and these kind of cases I faced a lot. So sorry, I lost his voice. So sorry, I lost her voice. So sorry, I lost the voice.
Vladimir, we cannot hear. Hello, Vladimir, yes. We cannot hear.
I was next. I was not able to.
و بسیاری ها مرا دختری کوهستان که از گرگونه میترسد مینامد. ما حالا ما حالا میدان 64,000 هکتار محافظت میکنیم. در توبه من 22 جنگل‌ها که لیسنیک ایگر هستند.
Looking at the area of 64,000 hectares and
preventing to cut illegal cut of the trees.
6,000 هکتار منطقه موضع یابویی جمع‌آوری کرده می‌شود که عبارت هستند از این چهارمغز، سیب، اولوچه، زلال جمع‌آوری کرده و خواجگی جنگل سپرده می‌شود. در دایره برنامه دولتی خواجگی جنگل همساله آید قرار کنی اکوسیستم های جنگل بنیادی باغ‌های نو، زننده، چاره‌بینی‌های بیوتکنیکی، حیوانات وحشی و دیگر چاره‌بینی‌ها برقرار کنی اکوسیستم های جنگل گذرانیده می‌شود. من برای نسل جوان
forest ecosystem and it should be a good example for
В то же время мы стараемся показать пример новому поколению молодому в том, чтобы они могли также охранять природу и также стараемся привлекать лесничего.
که این حوض در سمت حفظ طبیعت کلی فعالیت
contributed to protect the forest, having long
Стараемся использовать различные новые методы, которые используются при охране природы, а также при редких исчезающих видов животных, таких как мархуры и так далее.
دوست می‌دارم. بودنش در آغوش مثلا در یک ماه 3-4 مرتبه حس را می‌بینم. در حدودی در خودمان یک حس را از سوی 93 این جانب رفیق خود حسابم. هر 3 ماه مانیتورینگ نمودهای وحشی گزارنده شده. در حساب‌ها در موجودیت نمودهای شماره اونها پرندگان
we have different birds and other wild animals. We are trying to protect them. To this international program, also the protection of the forest ecosystem, we are trying to contribute. There are many challenges and difficulties existed. The main challenge is lack of the model to improve the protection of the animals, and I think that there should be educational visits should be organized to other regions, and we should study the experience of other regions, and for the protection of the biodiversity we should use them. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Скажем, нашего региона, обменяться этим опытом, чтобы мы могли также его использовать в дальнейшей своей работе. Спасибо большое за внимание.
Or there will be 1 or 2 more?
Советом гумшот.
Есть еще выступление? Все, у нас все.
Все, да? Okay.
Девушки закончили?
Да, закончили.
Закончили или продолжают?
Да. А первое закончили. Еще будут?
Планируется?
Да.
Пусть каждый выступят, как планировала было, пожалуйста, выступите, да.
Так, каждый выступайте, пожалуйста.
Если возможно и хотите выступить, пожалуйста, вам слово.
Да, Наталья, они сейчас продолжают выступать.
Салам алейкум. Mahrabi Abdali هستم.
Добрый день всем. Уже 5 лет я
in the family of the forest protector, and my mother also working in this field. From my childhood, I like this profession, and I'm feeling very, comfortable in this profession because I like nature. And everything in nature is interesting. And also to observe fauna and flora, for me, it's very interesting. 3,000 hectares we protect. This territory, we are using, horses to protect. Even there are some places that are not possible to use the horse to protect. Therefore, we are going there by foot or by walking. There are many animals living in the forest. We are trying to reduce the cut of trees, cut for forestry. people, are treating differently. They are saying that it is not the profession of the women, and I want to contribute to the protection of the nature.
Работа не такая важная и значительная, и я думаю, что нам нужна поддержка именно в этом вопросе, в этом деле. Естественно, мы тоже сейчас с различными проблемами, и в этом направлении помогли с необходимым оборудованием, которое мы можем.
وحشی رو میبینم شادی میکنم و از آن حیوانات وحشی تصادفاً در دهه یا در جایهای سرادم پیدا میشوند. من در گذرانیدن کارهای فهماندهی آید
and also participate in awareness raising, among population. This, event is very interesting. Recent time, we can see some improvement in our activities, like using telephone communication as a kind of communication. It allows to record.
کوردینات‌ها با محضاً معلومات‌های وارد سازیم و مکان‌های زیستی حیوانات را مشاهده و نظارت نماییم. رحمت و دقت.
Молодец. Владимир, у нас второе выступление закончилось, сейчас третье.
Thank you very much. I think there was one more speaker or even two.
هستم از ناحیه شمس‌الدین شارفین سیحه دشت جم من طول
7 years that I'm protecting the forest and the state-owned enterprise forestry unit of Dasht Jum. I'm so happy to work in this field, not participate in the public life, and we are planting trees and bushes to those places. I have a lot of interesting, and I'm enjoying doing so. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there any more contribution from Dushanbe directly? One more. Please.
One more person remained.
جو علیش کدام تا بله شما همونجا کامپیوترتون اومد کامپیوتر رو گپ زنید شما کانال روسی با شو
آخه چی با همین از اول کاردینال نمیکنید
نمیدونم
آره
گهتر در جنگلبانی دشت جم 20,000 میکنیم جنگل را نگاه ببین میکنیم درختای نو میشنونیم حیوانات را نگاه بین میکنیم از طرف زمستان که وایها خنک نخورن و که کم نزنن خوراکاشو میدن.
And we are giving food to the wild animals in the winter time. By the project that I want to thank to the project of the snow leopard that they are supporting us they provided tent, also winter clothes, cameras. All of that, make the easy the work of forest protectors.
Thank you very much. I have the feeling that the 4 contributions, that was those which were enough.
Shakur is yours.
Is there one more?
Да, Barbara, это выступление, всем выступления с нашей стороны.
That's it. Thank you very much. I think that those are extremely inspiring stories of ladies who are taking their time, who are going to the mountains, sometimes on horses, leaving back their families just to take care of the nature and protecting, conserving the nature. I think that's really inspiring to see how much a person who is devoted to the job can do for the forest and beyond, to speak at the public events, as I understood, to try to discuss with the local community and raise their attention. That's very inspiring, and thank you so much for your commitment to do so. Also on my side, I wish to apologize for the small delay now which we have in the schedule due to the technical reasons, but I think that all of us would rather wish to be in Dushanbe and meet up with you and listen to your stories. So thank you for sharing. And I would go back to the program if you allow. And now I would like to introduce Boris Erk. He is director of IUC and Regional Office for Eastern Europe and Central Asia. He has a long-term experience with wide different organizations, international and governmental, and also NGOs, research organization in the wide field of nature protection, conservation of protected areas, and also nature-based solutions. Boris, floor is yours. You have 9 minutes, not 10, because we have to save up a little bit of time. Thank you very much for your contribution. Floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara, very much. I hope that participants can hear me and see me. I also feel very privileged to speak after these so inspiring presentations, to hear from women from Tajikistan. And especially so because just on Monday, we gave a workshop, a training for our colleagues in Tajikistan on nature-based solutions. So this presentation comes in very timely. I do apologize for not being able to be with you, and I have to say that I really long very much visiting Central Asia once again. Thanks to ESCAP for inviting us, and in particular to Mr. Broca of FAO, who has made this contact and actually provided this opportunity for IUCN to give this presentation. I share my screen now and walk you through an interesting presentation on nature-based solutions that I prepared for you. I'm just making it full screen. I'll start first with just a real few sentences on where I come from and the organization that I represent. That I'm sure that there are people in the audience who are not aware of. IUCN is a membership organization, one of the biggest membership organizations in the world, with more than 1,400 members, of which 90 plus states. But we also have civil society organizations, research institutes, and indigenous peoples. And most recently, as we all returned from Marseille, where we had a very inspiring World Conservation Congress, now we are open also to subnational authorities and including local authorities. So that's very interesting. I say we come from Marseille. It's the biggest get-together in the world. Some 10,000 people have gathered there. President Macron opened it. And there's one big takeaway, and that's very clearly to say that climate crisis and biodiversity crisis and health crisis that we live in is just 3 facets on one big crisis. So that's the way how we should understand it, and that's the way how we should deal with it. Going further, on nature, zooming into nature-based solutions. So we've heard about, there was a very, very good presentation that we just heard about the state of the art when it comes to environment and climate in North and Central Asia. And is no actually surprise then in 2020, last year, that IUCN came up with a global standard for nature-based solutions. And the global standard for nature-based solutions is aimed at addressing exactly those issues. So how can we manage nature that we still have? And Central Asia is certainly blessed with biodiversity and nature that it has. How can we protect where biodiversity needs to be protected? And how can we restore where the land or sea has been degraded? So that's what the global standard for nature-based solutions is about. And beyond just the standard that I invite you to look into, download, read through, there is a lot of material actually which explains how the nature-based solution standard works. On my next slide is the very rationale behind the standard. So it works under certain principles. You know, it has to provide benefits to people. It has to provide benefits to nature. It has to provide benefits to economy. If all these principles, you know, are addressed, then we can say that these are nature-based solutions, and they can address a number of societal challenges, you know, from climate change to water and food security, disaster risk reduction, health and biodiversity, and economic well-being. Yeah. Moving forward, I'm bringing in one example, and that example comes from the Western Balkans, but it's a very illustrative.
اینجا از بالکان غربی گرفته شده است. یعنی در آسیای مرکزی میتونیم بعضی از این تجربه ها رو یعنی برای تاب‌آوری یا برای مقاومت استفاده کنیم. البته ما
сохранение видового разнообразия и в рамках охраны снежного барса и мы
dryland management projects that are around the corner and just to be launched. So now zooming into the nature-based solutions initiative in the Western Balkans, it works under 3 pillars. So that's strengthen knowledge and awareness. That's to integrate nature-based solutions into policies and climate smart planning. And it's to implement and scale up nature-based solutions. It is a regional initiative and covers the whole of the Western Balkans, which is 6 economies from Albania to Bosnia, Serbia, North Macedonia, Montenegro, and Kosovo. So what we are having in that project is that we are trying to understand, you know, what are the drivers for land degradation, how can they be addressed through nature-based solutions, how nature-based solutions can be integrated into key policies like national adaptation plans, sectoral plans, and so on. We are developing 3 training modules, to help basically design, implement, and monitor nature-based solutions projects. And we would like to integrate them into capacity development processes and initiatives in the region. But what's very important for us is that we are trying to implement nature-based solutions in 2 places, in Serbia and Albania. So there will be 2 demonstration sites. And as you can see, those demonstration field projects, they operate again under certain principles. So it has to be based on knowledge. So it has to be informed decision. It has to be community participation and stakeholder consultation. It has to be landscape scale approach, and it has to have a monitoring and evaluation framework that can then inform us whether and to which extent the nature-based solution intervention has been successful. As you can see, what we are trying to do, trying to address are floods, but we do that not by putting infrastructure, gray infrastructure, but we are trying to address land erosion upstream so that by restoring that land, we provide benefits to the local community, but we also support communities downstream. And then finally, how we scale up, as I already presented. So we are developing national scoping studies on nature-based solutions. We are preparing a comparative policy analysis that can be very interesting for Central Asia, for example, to have national scoping studies on nature-based solutions and to have a regional policy analysis to see what are the policies at hand and where nature-based solutions could be introduced. We are doing awareness and capacity, and then we are scaling up. How we scale up? We scale up by developing a large size project, most likely for the Green Climate Fund, but we are also in discussion with other funding opportunities like international funding institutions. We are preparing tender dossiers and feasibility studies for future nature-based solutions interventions. So to help governments actually to have ready-made projects that they can then raise funds for. And we are building a regional nature-based solutions knowledge and capacity development hub. By doing this, we are very much confident that actually that we will be able to scale our intervention up and actually open this space up, not just for us, but also for partnering organizations. I stop here. I very much welcome, thank you for your attention. And I welcome any questions. I'm happy to answer. Thank you once again. Большое спасибо.
Thank you, Boris, for staying even below 9 minutes. I think that you would have much more to say, because the topic you take up with the, the approach close to the nature is exactly that's what we need for today. And thank you for sharing some of the good practices and how we scale up when you use the global standards for nature-based solutions. So thank you for that. And I'm sure that the scoping studies and the policies analysis, as well as the pilot project here in Central Asia, they are very needed, and hopefully they will come up. So thank you for your contribution. And without further ado, I would like to invite our next speaker, Mr. Mahmoud Shaumarov. He is an expert, as we will see, in the rural development. Nowadays, he's working for the Common FAO and GEF project, and also he's a regional coordinator of the program for Central Asia countries initiative for land management. But he used to work for many other international organizations and always in the field of rural development. So Mahmoud, the floor is yours with your important contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barbara. Firstly, I'd like to express my gratitude for the organizers for inviting me to this wonderful forum. And today I'd like to share some results of our project. Let me share the screen. Okay. Can you see the screen? Okay, great. So let me very briefly introduce you to the regional project on integrated natural resources management in drought-prone and salt-affected agriculture production landscapes in Central Asia and Turkey. So this is the regional FAO and GEF project, and it is implemented under the Central Asian Countries Initiative for Sustainable Land Management. And this project contributes to 2 UN conventions, the Convention on Combating Desertification and UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. And so basically this project focuses on 2 key issues under these 2 conventions, the drought issue and the salinity issues in these countries, and helps and supports the countries also to implement and achieve the targets under these 2 UN conventions. The total project budget is about $76 million US, and it includes the GEF funding of $11 million US, other donor contributions, and the bulk amount of this budget comes from the contribution from these beneficiary countries as well. The project started in 2017, and recently it was extended until 2024. We have 4 components under this project. So first component mostly focuses on the regional collaboration, improving the partnership to implement more effectively the integrated natural resources management practices and scale up them in the region. The second and third components are national components implemented in 5 Central Asian countries, and mostly they look into the policy, legal, institutional aspects, and to create the enabling environment for INRM scaling up. And the third component is the field component, I would say, which is the biggest component, and focuses on upscaling the SLM and climate smart agriculture practices in the drought and salt affected landscapes in Central Asian countries. The last component is to strengthen the monitoring and evaluation and adaptive management of the project. So we have been listening other speakers about degradation issues, and the salinity issue in Central Asia is one of the severe forms of the land degradation. And today we have the latest studies show that more than half of the arable areas are prone to different levels of salinity. And in these photos in the bottom, there are two photos of our project sites, one from Bukhara region, another one from the South Kazakhstan in Kizilorda district. And so you can see here the white cover in the field, but this is not a snow, it's a salinity. So as you see, the situation is really unpleasant, I would say, for not only for the farmers, but also for the food security in the region. And so what this project does to address these issues. So firstly, we work on the policy level. So we work closely with responsible state agencies to raise this issue, to establish a dialogue between different agencies, to have interagency working groups, and we also do the economics of land degradation studies to show the policymakers how much it will cost the country and in terms of GDP to address these issues now and in the future if no investments are attracted to address these issues. And we also work on the capacity development areas. We publish different knowledge products to raise the awareness and also to build the capacities on different levels. For policy levels, on institutional level for different academia and research organizations, and also on the field level to the farmers. And so one of the key objectives of this project is to scale up the SLM and INRM technologies and practices which were successfully implemented on the demonstration fields since the beginning of this CASILM program in 2005. So how we address this objective? We work on 4 directions. So firstly, at regional scale, as I mentioned, we work with the responsible state agencies in these 5 countries to establish a dialogue and partnership to create the synergies between different programs to address the salinity and drought issues. The second direction is the capacity development. So we work with those agencies to build their capacity and to establish a working mechanism to address these issues on sustainable manner. The third direction is we're also creating the regional knowledge management platform together with our partners in WOCAT and the University of Bern. And this regional platform is serving as a database to collect and document SLM technologies and to share this knowledge in the region. And the last direction that we work is the field work. And here we work directly with the farmers and with the other types of land users, with local organizations, and as an instrument, we use the farmer field schools to address this project intervention, to address this project, to address these issues in the region. So, as an example, I brought here 3 countries in our region. So, in Kazakhstan, we are creating different databases containing the salinity maps, land degradation maps, drought maps. And we also now launching the Soil Doctors program jointly with the other FAO units in Kazakhstan and in other countries. And also the Farmer Field School is being established in the country. in our project pilot districts. In Tajikistan, we also work in different districts, target districts, and we established here 8 women incentive groups, and we provide seeds of salt tolerant crops, and also we help them to improve their value chains and to sustain the food production, and also to be more resilient in terms of climate vulnerability and climate change issues. And so, as I mentioned, we also provide different trainings, and farmer field school activities are conducted in Tajikistan. In Uzbekistan, mostly the same activities are conducted here. We have different demonstration plots in Kashkadarya, in Bukhara regions, and we provide drought and salt tolerant crop varieties to extend them on the field level. And also we help the farmers to establish the seed base and to produce and multiply them, to distribute them widely, and to scale up those crops in the field level. So far we established 40 hectares in Bukhara, and also another 40 hectares in Kashkadarya, and also the conservation agriculture practices are being demonstrated in the area of more than 400 hectares, and different knowledge products and capacity development events, farmer field schools are being established in Uzbekistan as well. So that was shortly from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mahmoud. Indeed, thank you for drawing the attention not only to the issue of desertification, but also salinity, giving the examples from your projects, and showing us the level of land degradation based on the pilots which you have for Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. I think that's extremely important indeed to draw attention to the need of the capacity building, to the common platforms where we can find data and technology, where we can share and where we can learn from each other. Thank you for the valuable experience. And now, last but not least, extreme pleasure to me to invite Ms. Vera Voronova for the presentation. Vera is the expert in ecotourism, but now what is probably most important and taking most of her time is to be the chief of the national NGO Kazakhstan Association of Biodiversity Conservation, which is focusing on wildlife conservation and using the science and technology to achieve this important goals. Vera, floor is yours. I'm not sure if Vera is with us right away connected.
He was with us a minute ago, so I assume that there must have been a technical issue that meant that she got thrown out. So I propose that what we do for now then, Barbara, we have the two discussants. So we would basically start the panel discussion now with our two discussants, and all speakers are of course part of the panel. And yeah, please continue with your moderation, and when Vera is back, we'll ask her to maybe just comment then orally during the panel discussion.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Natalia, for managing this small interruption. So indeed, if possible, I would like to now open the floor for a short panel discussion with the policymakers, with the people who has the burden of taking the decision in those important issues, how to scale up our topic of today, the SDG goal 14 and 15. We have the overall question that what is really the evidence? We have seen now the real evidence of the climate impact on the region. Now we have to speak about the solutions and about the perspectives, how our countries are ready to go ahead with the challenges. And I would like to invite two speakers for the panel, one after each other. The first one is Rashid Kazhaspayev. He is from the Department of Green Economy of Ministry of Energy of Kazakhstan. And the second speaker will be Serdar Irinov. He's from the head of the deputy head of the Administration for Environment and Hydrometeorology of Turkmenistan. So, Mr. Rashid, the floor is yours.
Коллеги, добрый день. Рад приветствовать вас на мероприятии.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I'm glad to welcome you here. First of all, in a nutshell, I would like to tell you how in Kazakhstan we are implementing the SDGs, and in particular SDG 14 and 15.
Сейчас здесь мне чуть шумно, поэтому я сейчас продолжу.
I'm in a little bit noisy environment, but I will continue anyway. In a nutshell, I would like to tell you about our SDG implementation. First of all, in 2018, we established a coordinating council on SDGs. In the framework of this council, we established 5 interdepartmental working groups in the area of environment, economy, and others. The goal number 14 and 15 is a part of our working group, which is headed by our minister. In the framework of this events, I would like to say that on an annual basis, we established a plan of initial measures on SDGs implementation. So, since 2018, on an annual basis, we are setting up for the whole year tasks, and all the governmental agencies are involved in its implementation. Currently, this year, we also have a plan for 2021, according to which we have to focus on the main points. We also have to set up targets on the most relevant indicators. This is our task, which we have to accomplish by the end of this year. And also, in the nearest future, we need to decompose the most relevant target indicators in line with our council targets. Also, in the greater details, I would like to dwell on 14 and 15 targets. In the framework of Caspian Sea monitoring, there we are doing monitoring on the 50 coastal points of the Caspian Sea. First of all, we are monitoring the quality of the seawater. And today and yesterday, we talked about the issues regarding fishery. And as far as target 14 is concerned, there we are setting up limits for fish catch, which in between 1st July 2021 until 1st July 2022. This limit is set up by the Ministry of Environment decree. In the framework of the climate change,
составляет более 400 миллионов тонн.
We have more than 400 million tons. In order to, this is about emissions. In order to have zero emissions, we have to significantly change our energy profile, boosting energy efficiency and transfer into the biofuel consumption. Also, I would like to admit that we do specific experience with the German counterparts, and in particular, we are focusing on cooperation with the German International Cooperation Agency, GITZ, on the reference book on energy efficiency and certificates, and we are also together developing a carbon neutrality doctrine. With this, I would like to finish my presentation. I'm ready to answer your questions if you have them. Thank you.
Thank you very much for highlighting the efforts to create the indicators, and at the same time also to putting the SDG 14 and 15 in the broader scope of the transformation of the economy towards green economy and reaching towards the climate neutrality. Thank you very much for your short contribution. And Mr. Serdar Berenov from Turkmenistan, I think you are with us. If you could take the floor now.
Janusz, рад вас видеть. Приветствую вас.
I'm very glad to see you. I'm welcoming you on behalf of the Ministry of Agriculture and Environmental Protection. When we're talking in a nutshell about the implementation, SDGs implementation in Turkmenistan, first of all, we are very active cooperating with the UNDP. In Turkmenistan, we have a special working group, and in the framework of this working group, we are having meetings on the regular basis where we review our current status of things. We also adopted a renewed national forest program for Turkmenistan. In the framework of this program, on an annual basis, we are planting at least 3 million trees. And this program is based on the national Turkmenistan program on climate change. This is a special program dedicated to climate change mitigation, and in every economic sectors we set up goals for them which they have to accomplish in the nearest future. And in particular, we are planning to develop national adaptation plan. And this is probably the latest document which was adopted here in Turkmenistan. We are also planning needs assessment exercise and technologies which are related to climate change. We are also in preparation of the 4th national report on climate change, as well as a 2-year report is being drafted, which we would like to send to the Convention Secretariat. These activities are quite active at the moment. And I also would like to dwell on the presentation made by Sanjay. And there he talked about desertification and the Aral crisis impact on Central Asian nations. You probably know that in the area of environmental disaster, or in the area which is an environmental crisis area which covered Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan. I'm talking about Aral Sea drying and desertification and biodiversity shrinkage is one of the most relevant topic in the region, which on one hand placed an extra burden in terms of accomplishing some of the SDGs. In our country, in the framework of the National Forest Program in the northern part of Turkmenistan, in the area which is related directly to the Aral Sea, in the square of more than 20,000 hectares, there we planted more than 8 million trees, those which are mostly adapted to the local dry conditions. And these measures, they have a positive impact on stabilizing environmental situation in the northern Turkmenistan, which decrease salt transfer from the dried Aral Sea. And also we are developing the National Aral Sea Program, and the draft of this program is being already prepared. We will send this program for review. And the framework of this program, we will have a number of various measures, including not only environmental measures, but also construction of waterworks, improving monitoring over air quality. And actually all over Turkmenistan we're supposed to do this. And I would like to say that some measures in the framework of this program had been already launched, and these measures are aimed at the comprehensive improvement of the Aral Sea situation adjacent to Turkmenistan. Maybe, and maybe I talked a lot, but in a nutshell, these are events which we are doing. If you have questions, you're welcome to raise them.
Thank you very much, Serdar. I think that's very informative when you are, especially when you are telling us about the forestation measures, about the national plan for adaptation. When you put this all together in the broader context of the also needs in terms of technologies and how they can support the state policy, that's very helpful to learn about the efforts done in Turkmenistan. So I know now that Vera is back to us, and she is also representing, I mean, she's also a speaker really grounded in the issues here in Central Asia. So maybe without the presentation, but Vera, maybe if you are with us, could you maybe share a little bit with us your experience in the steppe restoration in Kazakhstan and the biodiversity conservation in Kazakhstan from the perspective of your organization?
Yeah, thank you, Barbara, and sorry that I missed the first part of the session. Yes, happy to talk today, and thank you to invite. I represent the Kazakh National Non-Government Organization, and we do work in Kazakhstan.
Can you please speak closer to the microphone? Can you please speak closer to the microphone? The sound is really very low.
Vera, can you speak closer to the microphone? Move your microphone to the mouse, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is it better now? So, just a second. So the biggest program of the CBK is the steppe restoration.
Нет, это не микрофон.
Like being home of many endangered species, the grassland, they are still the least protected.
Your microphone does not work. Can you please move closer to the laptop, because this is not the microphone.
around 42% of the total.
Yeah,
very
it seems
sorry,
that your
Vera.
microphone is, your voice is very low. Maybe you speak towards your laptop, because it does not seem that the microphone with a headset is working. Maybe we just hear you through your laptop.
You speak through the built-in. No.
Can you try now?
Is it better now?
A little bit. Okay. Oh, a little bit. We'll try, but
yes, please continue.
Okay, I will try to speak close to microphone. As I said, like the steppe ecosystem, being the home for many endangered species, is the least protected landscape in the world, and the Kazakhstan currently has 42% of the total square of the country covering by steppe ecosystem, and they still left in the almost natural condition. And also, most of you are aware that currently it's very well known that the grassland, they hold around 34% of the global stock of the carbon. So they provide a good storage for carbon and the sequestration. And the cultivation and urbanization, any urbanization activities around the grassland, they still modifying those ecosystem, and especially through infrastructure development. And so taking account the importance of this ecosystem, the initiative named Altyn Dala Conservation Initiative, which is translated from the Kazakh as a golden steppe, was launched 12 years ago with the support of the government of Kazakhstan and the support from the international organization like a Frankfurt Zoological Society, Flora and Fauna International, and Royal Society for the Protection of Birds. Being in this partnership, we try to focus on their main needs, like illegal hunting, illegal wildlife trade, and the habitat destruction, and habitat fragmentation. And we do this through the different approaches, like awareness raising and the policy as a main, and development of the protected areas network, and building ecological connectivity, and of course the key species conservation and restoration through research. Since today we talk about the sustainable development, and as I mentioned before, the infrastructure development, especially on this vast area, become to be one of the main threats, one of the main threats for the steppe ecosystem. And I will share just the map. So here you have two maps presented here, and we started to study migration of Saiga antelope since 2009 using satellite tracks. And on the first picture, you can see how Saiga antelopes migrate in the one part of the country. This is the Ustyurt population, and then since 2013, when the railway has been built in this area between two sites. So you can see how migration has been changed. So the infrastructure is really cut. This railway has been cut migration routes of the Saiga, which bring the limits of the food of the calving sites for this animal. Currently, one of the focus of the steppe restoration program is to conserve population of the key animals, and especially ungulates in the steppe, since is their way to keep steppes healthy. And another issue is to provide recommendation in time for the financial institution who come into Kazakhstan to do investment for the big national roads, and then to work with the national authorities, the Special Committee of Roads. Another issue which is upcoming quite heavily in Kazakhstan related to the steppe ecosystem is the changes in the agriculture sector in the Kazakhstan. As you know, since Soviet Union time, Kazakhstan is losing the nomad style of keeping livestock, and the livestock, cattle are breeding close to the settlements, which is bringing one more issue as overgrazing of the area, and this is also bringing a degradation of the lands around the settlements. But on the same time, we have a problem when there is very little animals in the steppe, and the steppe is also functional, not healthy, because of another issue of undergrazing. Trying to work with the policy on the agriculture, on the sustainable agriculture, this is one of the main recommendations come from our scientific research, shows that since the number of livestock and the type of how cattle breeding has been changed, the land degradation is increased, and this also brings to another issues of the expanding scale of the steppe fires in Kazakhstan. And currently, when today the government is quite successful with the anti-poaching activities and another activities, and the Saiga population has been increased very significantly in the country, we do have a common issue on the conflict between wild animals and the livestock, and especially because of the water resources as a main limit, and this issue is quite strong in the west part of the country. And here we have a very urgent needs on the complex research and sustainable approach, how to think carefully about any expanded and developments of the agriculture sector in the area where we have a high number of the wild animals. For example, like Saiga now has there are around 500,000 number of the Saiga in the West Kazakhstan, and on the same time is the biggest this is the region has the biggest number of livestock as well. So this is one of the main concerns that we are meeting now with the steppe restoration program, working on the increasing and sustainable development of the population of the wild animals, and on the same time working with the policy on infrastructure development and agriculture.
Thank you very much, Vera. Thank you for sharing your view on the steppe restoration, on the biodiversity conservation. Thank you for showing us even on the very clear example of the Saiga migration, how the habitats are fragmented basically, and how the humans, how we can make an impact, exactly the negative impact on the situation. And that's interesting to hear about your research also findings, because I always feel that there is too little interaction between the practice and the research and the decision makers and the civil society. So I think that's also a good example basically to bridge that. Thank you very much. Now we would have a little bit time for discussion. Please feel free to ask the question to any of the panelists of today. So if you would like to, maybe that's easier just to see for me, because there are over 50 participants. I don't see all the hands raised up. So if there is a question, if you could just put it into the chat. I have the feeling that there was a question from, related to Azerbaijan, but I was not exactly sure, which programs you might mean in your question, and which speaker you would be addressing with this question. So if you are able to specify it a little more, then it would be great. And maybe just using my function as a moderator, in the meantime, when you come up with your questions, I would have one, if you don't mind, and I'm trying to figure out who would be the best to ask, and I believe it's probably Katinka and Boris, because I think that our region is, when we think about SDG 14, 15, as the whole world prone by COVID, And in both of your presentations, you have been making a very valuable point between the link of the biodiversity, climate change, and health. So would you have an idea and an opinion on that in the global scale, or specifically in Central Asia? What would have been the impact of the COVID and the measures now to try to build back better from the situation on the current situation, and the fact that we are still not really on the track to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals 14 and 15? I don't know who would you would like to answer, and if it's well placed, to Katinka and to Boris.
Katinka, would you like to go first? I'm fine either way.
Please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Barbara, for that question. And that question is extremely pertinent and timely. And I have to say that IUCN with partners has put forward a concept note to that end to address issues around COVID, biodiversity, and land management at large. Just as almost like anywhere in the world, we know that the spread of COVID-19 was perpetuated by the way how we manage land and natural resources, so that those is the scale of sort of a transmission, contact points and transmission of potential viruses and vectors basically has significantly increased with our encroachment in a way to nature. Yeah. So the way to address this is first to map what are those transmission points. Yeah. To see where the risk lies in terms of transmission from like wildlife to people. So to map that and then to try to address where we think that the risk is highest. Of course, that we know that there are hundreds of thousands of potential pathogens out there. So it's not that easy to address those issues, but at least we can try to narrow that down by mapping and then focusing on those areas. And that will be certainly that we look into our land use practices, land management, the rate of degradation of land, and so on, health of ecosystems, if you wish, and then to try to improve. Yeah, so by better managing land in those places, natural resources certainly, and then restoring where it's degraded, and there where it's degraded, actually, then the risk of new a zoonotic disease transmitting to humans actually increases. Yeah, so I think that will be the very first point. So we need some science here, we need some research here, but we need also very strong policy response and then enforcement on the ground. Yeah, and then of course that under the umbrella of raising awareness and making people be aware and know actually how these things work and how they can be mitigated, because the ones that are exposed are those who are in touch with nature, with wildlife, who either live or do things on the ground. You know, so we have to make sure that they are actually that the level of risk is reduced at that end.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I think that's indeed very sometimes forgotten link between our health and the environmental health, how quickly it can influence each other. If Katinka would like to add something, please feel free. Otherwise, please don't feel pushed for that, because Boris has already given an answer. Okay, we have one also hand raised. It looks to me like that, from the Association of Practicing Ecologists from Kazakhstan. If this hand is raised by, yeah, I think.
Yes.
Laura.
Good day, everyone. Hello, Barbara. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you all. So thank you for organizing this kind of conference. As I mentioned before, we are facing now a practical issue in the capital of Kazakhstan when it comes to the life on land, when it comes to SDG 15. So in the capital of Kazakhstan, for construction purposes, the lake called Maly Taldykoil is being drained and destroyed by the mayor, by the local authority of the capital city, Nur-Sultan. And if to link the SDG 15 with the pandemic, then I would say that during the pandemic, construction activities, the construction companies started doing this activities very fast, like it got activated. And we see that this has a negative consequence, negative impact here in the capital city. So it shows that SDG 15 is not integrated to our governmental planning system. So here, using the opportunity that here we have a representative of the Ministry of Ecology, I would ask a question. Я, наверное, спрошу на русском, да? Вот представитель из Министерства экологии, вы, наверное,
And I would like to ask in Russian, the representative of Ministry of Environment, you probably know that currently Maly Taldykoil lake is practically being destroyed and covered with soil. And we see that SDGs are not integrated into the government system. The fact that the local administration is raising housing buildings and there is no environmental impact assessment of this housing construction. And here we see that violations of construction codes, environmental codes, and SDGs in the case of this lake. The main implementation body of SDGs is the Ministry of Economy and Environment. Is Ministry of Environment, and why the Ministry of Environment is practically not doing anything at all about this situation, and such an enactment resulted in a destruction of the whole lake. We, as Association of Practicing Environmentalists, believe that a practice should be linked with the science, and we are talking about wonderful things. We're talking wonderful things about SDGs, but we see what's going on the ground. The whole lake is disappearing.
SDGs are not integrated to governmental planning system, especially in the construction area. So we are now facing that in urbanized areas, construction companies are not following the rules and they are not following these SDGs. So there is a conflict of interest. So I would recommend to other colleagues as well to integrate SDGs into governmental planning system. So I will just wait for the answer of the Ministry of Ecology.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Laura. I think that the question was directed to Mr. Rashid Kazhespayev. If you are still with us, would you be able to answer the question? Or we lost the connection to each other?
No, he is here. We can see him.
So if Mr. Rashid, if you would like to answer, the floor is yours. I don't know if the connection maybe is wrong, or maybe you could answer in the chat if you cannot use your mic. Yeah, I think there must be a kind of connection issue. But I think that what Laura just raised is also kind of a similar issue to this what Vera was showing us previously, showing that there can be a railway or there could be another construction, as you are saying now, which can severely have an impact on the country's ability to implement the SDG, right? So to link between the big policy and the national policy with the local standards and goals, expectation of the local administration. So maybe just waiting if there will be an answer to your Laura question. Also a small question to Viera at the same time. I mean, is there anything to be done for the SAIGAC without removing the trains? Because now it's probably impossible. So is there any maybe particular solution, but also overall idea how to bring together the land development and building the construction without comprising our environment?
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. It's a good question. And in the general, I would say that from my point of view, the main concern about the sustainable approach on the development of any kind of infrastructure is focused on the very little capacity in the country and expertise on the biodiversity specifically, because there are some capacity on the general ecological question like the air pollution and the water pollution, but very little capacity on the biodiversity, and especially how the landscapes are functional as ecosystems. Like an ecosystem approach is the weak. For the SAIGA is the good question, since there usually people think that the roads and railways are become a physical barrier for the animal, but it's not like this. So the main barrier is the traffic. SAIGA is very shy animal because they have been poached and for many long times. They are very afraid of the road. And they don't come close to any infrastructure developments, especially because of the traffic. And that's why it's quite difficult to plan any construction helping SAIGA to cross the road, because they just not come close to this road. And also because the animal get used to the vast and the open landscape, and the construction would be also make them afraid, make them scared. And another solution in the long term can be that animal gets used to this infrastructure, but we still don't know. So there is no like modeling scenarios how this can be affected. And also the animals, and not only SAIGA and many other ungulates, they behave on the such way when they have when the population become big and the groups of animals are big, they become less afraid of their infrastructure. So when there is a big group, they can cross the road in the some part, but because like currently the Central Asia population is spread with the many small groups, and of course animal would be not able to cross the road now, which is planned by government in the really wild steppe. I hope that's my answer. Yeah. Make it.
Thank you very much indeed. I mean, there are that's always the bigger issue, how to try to balance, right, between economical development and the environmental protection for the benefit of the people. So the question of all the time the same, the sustainable development goals, you cannot share them from each other, separate them from each other at the same time. That's extremely difficult, even at this particular example, to sometimes really accommodate all of this issues. So thank you for that. If there is no more questions, maybe we just wrap up, and I would give the floor to Natalia for just for the technical concluding remarks, and then I would try to summarize.
I look forward to your summary, Barbara, because there were so many different issues that were raised here, quite some of them quite controversial. So let's see how you can summarize that in a few words. Meanwhile, dear participants, let's do our evaluation again. The link will be posted in the chat, and you have 2 minutes, and then we get back to Barbara.
Thank you very much. That's indeed challenging because the panel was very full, and we used to have an overview from the global perspective through the regional one into the national ones from the different countries of Central Asia. Indeed,
Barbara, give them 2 minutes of silence.
Yeah,
Let them fill out the questions, and then we will summarize. Thank you so much. Speakers, can I please ask you also to go to this link and to evaluate? Yes. Dear Vladimir, while we're finalizing the evaluation questionnaire, could I ask you just to switch on your camera, because we also want to say goodbye to your meeting in Tajikistan. It would be nice to just have a visual at the end. Okay, I think we're done, Valentin. I think we can take the slide off, and over to you, Barbara.
Thank you very much. Thank you indeed. I hope that the session has brought the new insights to you, at least about the importance and urgency of action to speed up implementation of the SDG 14 and 15 here for our North and Central Asia. I think that's indeed through our speakers who have the global insights, we could hear how challenging it is to, and how much of the transformation which we put into the nature has an impact on ourselves, even on our health, on our long-term perspectives for development. Even if, as Katinka has said, none others are doing better than us, I think it's not really a good conclusion. And then it was then reflected in the number of other presentations, starting from Sanjay, who was speaking more on the droughts, and then we heard about the desertification and salinity again from the Mahmoud, and from his perspective from the regional cooperation. Then we were thinking more about the nature-based solutions as a solution, because we always have to look for the solutions, not only to think how many challenges are facing us, but just learning about the solutions like nature-based solutions, or the decision support system as proposed for the adaptation priorities in water by Sanjay. I think that those are giving us the insights and telling us there is a way forward, but we have to make our homework. At the same time, when we have heard from our speakers in the panel discussion from Kazakhstan, from Tajikistan, from Uzbekistan, from Turkmenistan, about their efforts on the level of policy, we of course have to appreciate it and at the same time ask for more, because without the sound policy and government's framework, we are not able to implement the national goals. And leaving them only on the paper, it would not be really enough, and it will fire back anyway today or tomorrow. Probably rather today. Tomorrow was too late, kind of. But I think that the discussion is very important, because today we are meeting each other, even if only in the online format. We are listening to each other. We are seeing so much inspiring examples as from Tajikistan, from the four brave ladies going really, I mean, in their real life to conserve the biodiversity and help the precious Central Asia goods, which is nature, to develop. And I think that there is no good summary. There is only the good summary in the saying, let's stay tuned and let's try to continue our efforts, bringing together the international partners. Thank you so much to ESCAP and to other partners of the session to bringing us together today, and to all speakers who have shared with us the global view, their regional perspective, and also their national challenges and solutions. I think that we are in the process. We have to achieve more progress, but we still have some time. So if we try to do it together, we certainly will have more opportunities for sharing experience and going ahead. I hope that by that, we have finished now, and I very much appreciate all of your attendance. The session was long. Sometimes there were some technical difficulties, but I think that shows our commitment to the topic, because we are still here almost in the full number as we started. Thank you very much. Thank you, Natalia, for your support in moderating this session, and hopefully see you soon.
Thank you so much, Barbara, for your wonderful moderation. I know everybody would like to go, but do we have the energy to maybe try a group photo? All you have to do is switch on your camera, and then our staff will go through the panels and take photos. So please just look into the frame, switch your camera on and smile, and don't let anybody show how late it is and how tired you are after a full day of meetings. So we're taking screenshots as we speak. Just give us a few moments. Maybe just a few more seconds. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks so much also from our side. Great contributions from all the speakers here. Thanks again, Barbara, for the moderation. Thanks to FAO for co-organizing the session with us. And we'll see you all tomorrow. Hopefully tomorrow we have very interesting sessions ahead. One on financing the type of green and sustainable development that we have been talking about in this session, and then a session on partnerships for the goals. Okay, so thanks, have a nice evening, and until tomorrow.